Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris is now on the Audacy app and Audacy.com.
Now, it's time for Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Here's your host, Greg Bicouvaris.
Let's welcome Adam Winkler, former Channel 3 sports director, also did some news before he left, and of course, former sports and news anchor in Houston at ABC 13. Adam, great to talk to you.
Greg, it is wonderful to reconnect. I've obviously been following you and a bunch of other folks since we left the East Coast to come back home, but I appreciate you. You must have had a big gap on the calendar that you wanted to call the old pal from Houston, but it's a pleasure to be with you.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to you and hear your voice too. And let's start right off. How has it been going back to Houston? Of course, you've pivoted yourself a little bit as well, and get right to the Texans. Your thought on them so far this year?
Well, it has been wonderful. This was, as you know, as most of your listeners know, this is home for me. Houston is always where we wanted to end up, so I was able to get here, finish my TV career, 20 years in local news. I've covered Astros World Series win, and I've since pivoted to the public relations side of things. We welcomed our third baby just a few weeks ago, so a little more flexibility, and that is just going great. Very grateful for that opportunity. And yes, the Texans, I can now be a fan. I can be like most everybody else, not you, because I know you're still at the games, but I can sit back on Sundays and actually watch them. And I tell you what, CJ Stroud, we knew literally from the first moment we talked to him that he was going to be a superstar. I was actually at the draft in Kansas City the year that they selected him, and we were together with all the prospects the day before on Wednesday. They kind of held a youth camp. And the story that we did that night, my photographer Damian Smith and I, was about kind of just C.J. Stroud and his presence. That was, if you remember, the leak about his S2 cognition test and, he was an Ohio State quarterback. Was he going to drop in the draft? The Texans were sitting there at 2. Maybe they were going to go elsewhere. And he was completely unaffected, Greg. We talked to him. He was like, what's the worst thing that could happen? I fall from the top 2 to number 20. Like, I'm still about to achieve my dream of being an NFL draft pick. I've got nothing to worry about. I'm blessed. And we could just tell how unfazed he was by that he was going to be able to succeed. And what he did last year, not throwing interceptions, not making mistakes, leading the Texans to, they were one half away from playing in the AFC Championship game. And he is just a star in every sense of the word. D'Amico Ryans is a phenomenal rising star, the head coach. The Texans are in such a great spot. And as you know, it's all credit to getting rid of Deshaun Watson and taking those draft picks that the Browns gave the Texans, and they have turned them into impact players, and that's why they are where they are.
What a difference between Stroud and Bryce Young. Pretty much parallel careers in college, but has gone totally south for Bryce Young. Just not the same thing at all. It just shows you what it means to be in a great system.
It's all about the perfect situation, too. And we've seen that time and time again. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield, what he's doing now. It just took, being surrounded by the right coaches, the right system, the right players. And you're exactly right with Bryce Young. I mean, the Texans will never have to admit it. But if they had the number 1 pick, do they still go C.J. Stroud? Or were they taking Bryce Young, who at the time just about everybody had number 1? But that size concern that so many people had, there were the Johnny Manziel comparisons and the Drew Brees comparisons. Well, we've seen that he did not have the running ability of Johnny Manziel. He did not have the arm or the leadership of Drew Brees. So you're exactly right. The Texans were at number 2 because of the way that final regular season game against the Colts ended. And they were able to take C.J. Stroud, and so far, history is on their side.
Absolutely. Talking to Adam Winkler right here on Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris, our Audacy podcast for the month of October. And talking about the Texans, I'll say this, you know this, we all grew up seeing the Cowboys all the time. National TV, nothing has changed. Great uniforms, great stadium, Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, and of course the winning ways back then. I stress back then. But the Cowboys still are a number one needle mover on TV, whether they're winning or losing. And for a long time, the Texans kind of had a chip on their shoulder like, yeah, we're playing in Texas and we're always going to be the Cowboys' wicked stepbrother or stepsister. What's the latest with that now as far as nationally? Because there's so many Cowboys fans around.
That will always be a rivalry. And to your point, you don't even have to be in Texas to be part of this Cowboys rivalry. You know, they are the ratings behemoth because you're either watching them because you're rooting for them or you are watching them because you hope to see them fall on your face like they have seemingly done so often here recently. The fascinating thing with the Texans-Cowboys rivalry is, like you mentioned, back in the glory days of the Cowboys, well, the Texans came around in 2002. Since then, I think that the Texans have just as many postseason victories as the Cowboys. We might need some verification, but I'm fairly certain that with the Texans' success last year, they are right there when it comes to postseason success. We obviously know the Cowboys haven't played in a championship game since the mid-'90s. Well, the Texans haven't either, but they've only been around since 2002. So I certainly think that this season, because they're going to play on Monday Night Football, and the Texans are having the success that they are, the Cowboys are having a bit of a struggle. If the Texans can find a way to beat the Cowboys on Monday Night Football and then find a little more postseason success, you might find Texans fans saying, hey, we're not worried about the Cowboys anymore. Yeah, they haven't played for a championship either. We need to worry about our own business. But you will always find Texans fans smiling when there's any sort of strife up in North Texas, if you will.
Absolutely. The Texans do take on the Packers on a big road game for them this coming weekend. Isn't it amazing, though, Adam, how the business has totally changed since when you finished college? You know, pretty much you do your sportscast. Now they expect the guys to shoot and edit unless you're working at, you know, New York or Los Angeles, I'm sure, the top couple markets. But there's so much more now. Than Joe the Fan has got a podcast. Everybody's got some type of YouTube channel, where before it was just us in the broadcasting media or the broadcasting business that had access to radio, to TV, to doing stuff online. So it's almost like feeding the beast. X, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, social media, you know, podcast, everything, audio, video, TV, movies, whatever it is. There's just so much media consumption out there. Even for a sports team, they got their own video people. They've got their own website that they can put video content on and then share it instantaneously.
Your phrasing was perfect, Greg. It is a beast. And as you know, you have to find a way to reach the consumer, the viewer, the listener, the fan, because we are all so busy with what we're doing. When I stepped away from local TV, our station, ABC 13, the news leader in Houston, was doing 13 and a half hours of news each day. That's more than half of the day. It's unbelievable. You're doing it on linear television. You're doing it on streaming. Everything's accessible via your phone. And like you said, you're also expected to reach the folks who maybe aren't in the market. So you have to put it on social media. And it is just, it is certainly a burden. But if you want to reach the folks, you have to find a way to reach them, because as we know, they will consume how they want to consume. If it's in quick 30-second clips they see on social media, that's fine. But you've also got the long form who they've got time to sit down and watch 90 minutes of an in-depth discussion or breakdown of all 22 film. So I think it gives the viewer, the consumer, the audience more options. But, sir, you're exactly right. When it comes to stretching us a bit thin, and I mean, I never thought growing up in Houston that one day I would be working here and also shooting the video, editing the video, but that's what I did. I won an award last year from the Texas Broadcast News Awards for the best sports reporter in the state. Every one of the stories on my award-winning reel, I shot and I edited myself, and this is the fourth biggest city in the country.
And you do a great job. Always love your work as well. And, you know, we switch back and forth with the Texans and the Astros. Joe Espada, of course, it's not easy in the shadow of Dusty Baker, who kind of helped salvage the Astros with his credibility as well. It seemed like they've kind of lost a little bit of an edge since Dusty left.
They did, and it was Dusty was such a player's manager. I mean, that's why he's going to be in the Hall of Fame here in a couple of years. He is so well liked. Joe Espada was sort of the, I guess he was maybe the true coach last year if Dusty was the manager. I mean, Joe was the one that would have the conversations with the players about, hey, we're going to give you an off day. Hey, he was sort of not the guy making the lineup, but he was that liaison between the manager's office and the clubhouse. Well, then all of a sudden, Dusty retires, and Joe is now that guy. So he's also the manager, having the conversations with the general manager and the owner, but also still sort of trying to be that player's liaison. And I think there was certainly an adjustment period, which is why they got off to that horrific start, something like 7-19 or something to start the year. And they just, Greg, they ran out of gas, and a lot of that is because this team played in 7 straight American League Championship Series. That's going deep into October. That's essentially an extra season of games when you tack all of the postseason games on. They kind of fell apart. I mean, the World Baseball Classic tacked on last year. These guys they were worn down. There was no margin for error. The pitching staff fell apart. The fact that they were able to even get to the playoffs was a bit of a miracle. It just wasn't their year. The cards, the stars, whatever you will, didn't line up. I think they'll be okay. I think there's a little bit of time left in the window, even if Alex Bregman leaves the Astros. But I certainly think that the golden era of Astros baseball is what we are witnessing right now. But we're certainly on the sunset age of that, if you will.
Wrapping it up here with Adam Winkler. Thank you for his time, talent, and treasure on some of these great facts we're talking about. Back to the Texans again. Obviously, they made the postseason last year. They made it in 11, 12, 15, 16, 18, 19, 23. They've had some gaps, but they didn't make it much early on. But, this time if they took on the Ravens, they might be able to beat the Ravens. They aren't intimidated like they were several years ago.
That is the biggest change, and great of you to point that out. It's just a different culture, and it starts at the top with D'Amico Ryans, who was part of those Texans playoff teams that you mentioned in those early days. This team fears nobody. They know they can go out there, and they've got a star top 10 quarterback. They've got a legitimate defense with playmakers and stars like Will Anderson Jr. and Donnell Hunter. They're going to have to go on the road, very likely, in the AFC playoffs and win a game in a place that nobody thinks they can win. They had never won a game in New England, ever, and they did that here recently. So this team, it is a new way of thinking, and they've got some tough games down the stretch. They go to Kansas City. They play Baltimore on Christmas, but they have absolutely every expectation of being in that mix of Super Bowl contenders, and that is wild to say.
Let's talk about that, too, because, when Belichick left New England, they thought, okay, we would just pick up the pieces. They've gone south since he left. Not that they were great last year, but sometimes, you're quick to hire a head coach, and it doesn't always work out. Sal, of course, has already been fired by the Jets already, but being an NFL head coach is almost just as tough as being a president.
Well, and I'm not sure I would want either one of those jobs right now.
Right.
If we're being frank, but I mean, the Texans went through it. I mean, they had 3 head coaches in 3 years. They were trying to find somebody that worked. David Culley, what a debacle that was. Lovie Smith, he was kind of a placeholder. Finally, they got the right guy, and it just cannot be overstated. The right head coach, the right quarterback can do wonders. Even Jacksonville right now, they thought they had Trevor Lawrence. They thought they had Doug Peterson. They thought that was the answer. Well, now they're kind of falling on their face, and Doug Peterson might be let go here soon. So it is wild. And so much respect to Kansas City, Baltimore, for the way they've sustained success with long-term head coaches, elite quarterbacks. Obviously, Baltimore hasn't gotten over that mountain because there's that Kansas City dynasty that every AFC team is going to have to go through to make it to the ultimate game.
And Mahomes is still very young, and of course Baltimore will get that credibility, like Adam said, if they evolve deeper and go to the Super Bowl. It's going to be pretty much for them now on Super Bowl or bust. Adam, thank you once again for joining us. Go ahead and give us any social media you want to connect with.
I am available. You can find me on my website. It's adamwinklermedia.com. That has an email address. That has all of my social media. Way to stay in touch with me. And Greg, I appreciate you taking the time, and congrats on all your success getting the podcast out to all of the masses. That is quite an accomplishment, and it was a pleasure to be with you.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Adam, and let's do it again sometime in 25. All the best to you and your extended family, all three of the kids and the wife and your family business, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Greg. We'll be in touch.
Very good. Adam Winkler right there, formerly of Channel 3 in Norfolk, now in Texas. Thanks to our good friends at Lee Matney Art Consultancy and Gallery, Photographs and Art Consulting right there in beautiful Williamsburg. Iconic paintings and photographs. They've got a lot of great resources, pop, art, surrealism, and of course, abstraction right there at Linda Matney Art Gallery, the Colonial Capital on Richmond Road. Google them, follow them on social media. At Mihogar Restaurant in Norfolk, they have Mexican pozole, chicken or pork soup. It is delicious at Mihogar. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, open in Yorktown. Go by and see Paul and his wonderful staff. High quality chicken fingers, fries, coleslaw, Texas toast. It is delicious. The great chicken sandwich, cane sauce, a kids menu, refreshing beverages, tailgates. They've got it all. Follow Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers on social media. They are open daily. Sakura Sushi Bar is now open in Virginia Beach. For one-of-a-kind dining experience, Sakura in Red Mill is a favorite of locals and tourists. Tasty sushi prepared fresh for you, as well as delicious entrees from the kitchen. This is the go-to place for sushi lovers. Enjoy lunch and dinner daily with some refreshing cocktails and adult beverages. Sakura Sushi Bar is located at 2137 Upton Drive and is open daily. Call 757-522-7288 and enjoy your next meal at Sakura Sushi Bar at Red Mill Commons.
So, what's Greg's problem?
I'm very mad!
God, I'm so mad right now!
I know you're mad. I know you're upset.
It's time for What Tees Greg Off.
All right, What Tees Me Off, always a fun segment right here on Sports Theme with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app, wherever you get your podcast as well. Can early morning phone calls before 9 a.m., that's why texting was around, to kind of preface you and get ready for that phone call. I don't want to talk to some business at 8:20 in the morning about anything.
Phone calls in general. I don't want to hear from you on the phone.
Right. Neighbors, contractors parking in front of your yard like it's a parking lot. I'm sorry. My house and my space is meant for my car, my friends, my contractors, not yours.
You preach, Bicouvaris. Preach.
Agenda-driven people can, especially in this business, that basically tell you their resume every time they see you and why they're worthy of some type of acknowledgement.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Very good.
Here's some things that tick me off, Greg. Charging cords for our electronics. You got USB Type A, Type B, USB-C, Lightning connectors, Mini A, Mini B. Then you got the bricks, the things you plug into the wall. Some are B, some are C.
Yeah.
That ticks me off. Here's another thing that ticks me off. When you're at a restaurant, can't find your server, most places really good about seating you quickly, but when the meal's over, I want my check and I want some leftover containers. Where the hell is my server?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the third thing that ticks me off, Greg, and I know that we don't talk about politics on this show, but I'm just going to say Ted Cruz. To quote Judd Nelson from the Breakfast Club movie, the guy is a neo-maxi Zoom dweeby. And I love everybody.
All right, and that's what tees us off. Recently, I was notified from the Athletic Hall of Fame of the Lower Virginia Peninsula about the 2025 class. Very honored to go in for broadcasting and to be joined by Karen Barefoot, former Old Dominion women's basketball coach, Antoine Bethea, former NFL football player, Greg Edwards, Langley Speedway auto racer, Tammy Harrison, who specializes in gymnastics, James Pooh Johnson, Boys and Girls Club of the Virginia Peninsula, Maurice Pierce, track and field coach at Hampton University, and Phil Smith, who was involved in football as well. It's an honor to go in with this class. They do it every few years, and it'll be in August of 2025 at the Boo Williams Sportsplex. And welcome back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Glad to have George McClain, the owner of the Marksman Firearms Training Center and Indoor Shooting Range from Newport News, Virginia. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Greg. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. Right in the middle of a political season, of course, George, and that's never easy. Presidents are going out in public. We've seen several incidents where people are putting their lives on the line, and really it's just very difficult, whether it's a man or a woman, a local official, a regional official, or a national official, to deal with a very negative public because you can't please everybody.
Well, that's true, but this all seems to be a bit one-sided. You see one side going after, at least all the stories that I have heard or witnessed on TV, have been one side going after the conservative base. And that just, I guess, tends to show how wild things can get in their eyes when it doesn't go according to their plan. If I get off on a tangent here, I apologize, but I get cranked up on some of this political stuff when everyone's saying that Trump is a threat to democracy, but here you got they're a Democratic candidate running for the highest office in the land that has not received one vote from any citizen of this country to be where she is today.
Right. There is a liberal media bias. It's very obvious whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. It seems like they're pushing their agenda. They're interrupting the guest. They're telling them what they think, what they want to answer, and what they want to hear. But really, it's freedom of speech for the people on the air and also for the elected officials. Why do an interview if you don't agree with the guest anyway, because you're just going to interrupt that person?
Well, and I've said the same thing. I don't know why they even do it. I think Trump did turn down the second debate with Harris. The same thing. I mean, they're just going to pile on him, and it's not a fair representation. So he's got to sit there and defend the whole time, and she gets off with these, soft pitches. And I don't blame him. I don't. At this point, I wouldn't do them either. And I think if most conservatives, when you look at the polls, and you really have to look at it, are the swing state polls or the polls on not just the swing states, but all of them when they look at specific issues. Trump starts taking the lead on a lot of those, but then they show a national poll, and it shows that Harris is up by 1 or 2 points. So I don't really follow how they're getting the numbers. I've heard a lot of experts say don't believe the polls. Conservatives are always polled lower, and then they blow everything out of the water come election day. So hopefully that's the case this time around. A lot may be like me. My phone rings. If I don't know who you are, if I don't recognize that number, it doesn't get answered. So if a lot of people are calling for participation in polls, I don't participate.
Not to mention, too, George, talking to George McClain, we get telemarketing calls before 8 o'clock in the morning. You get business calls before 9. How about let somebody have their caffeine, take their medicine, get something to eat before they start discussing business at 8:20 in the morning? I don't care what the topic is. Unless it's family, nobody needs to call somebody before 9 in the morning.
I agree 100%, and I get them as well. That's if it's an 800 number, any of these toll-free numbers, but anymore they spoof the numbers, and they're selling all kinds of different drugs for this or drugs for that, or the best sliced bread that you can get. I've had people call me. They texted me. One woman texted me, and she said, "Would you please quit calling me?" And I said, "Lady, I don't even know who you are. Never called you before in my life." But I said, if you've never heard of spoofing phone numbers, you need to look that up and do some research, because that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, not to mention, too, everybody wants to buy your house. Well, I'll make it very clear. My house is not for sale. It won't be for sale today, tomorrow, or anytime soon. And that's just unbelievable how a business person, a real estate agent, even though they're probably not agents, are making a first impression. That's the worst impression.
Seems like we're all on the same call list.
Right. 520 Industrial Park Drive in Newport News. George, talk about the hours and talk about Sundays in general.
Well, Sundays are still, we're not doing them every Sunday yet. We're kind of still reserving that for our concealed classes when we have it, and those are on the Sunday. But then Monday through Saturday, we're doing it 10 to 6. So we've got 8 hours that we're open up for the general public. If we've got classes, because we're also a state certified training school for the security industry. So those classes for that will typically start at 8 in the morning, and then go until whatever finishes up, which is usually 5 o'clock, a little bit after. So between the school and the retail store and the range, we have two different schedules as far as hours of operation.
Phone number 757-872-4130. Like the Marksman in Newport News on Facebook as well. Of course, a great training center. How is inventory this time around in the fourth quarter of the year?
Better than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to get pretty much the things that we want, not everything, because there's always, and that's always kind of been the case. You get something that starts running very popular across the country, and inventories from the manufacturer just run a little low, so sometimes it can be a little slow getting them in, but it's much improved over it has been since the COVID all that stuff kind of strangled the industry, and so we're pretty much able to get most of what we want right now.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. How's the shooting range?
Range is going good. Speaking of being broken and fixing, we've had to do some range improvements on there. The backstop we've had shut down a couple times during the summer just for general repairs. You can't take that pounding day after day after day and never do any maintenance on it. So sometimes we have to shut just the range side down. The retail side's still open, school is still open, but if we're doing range maintenance, we shut the whole range down. So we don't, we got a wall separating the short side and the long side, but you just don't want to endanger work crews or employees that's working back there. So we'll typically shut the whole range down when we're doing that kind of maintenance.
It's always a must. The Marksman's Firearm Training Center and Indoor Shooting Range right there in Newport News, place that George has had for several years. And George, I got to give you guys a lot of credit because you got to vet people these days. You don't know who's walking in your front door. The good thing is most of your staff is armed as well, because you never know who's walking in the door, what agenda they're trying to do by walking in that door, whether it's buying or going to a shooting range. You really don't know.
That's why we really try to get the word out to everybody on forums like this. Don't come in wearing a hoodie with the hood up over your head. Don't come in, especially if you got sunglasses on and all that, to where we can't identify you, see what's going on. All you're doing there is just raising a lot of red flags, and quite frankly, you're going to be confronted by a staff member. It's just not smart. Don't come in with a gun in your hand. Have it in a case or have it in a holster on your hip, or you can carry the concealed. That's fine, but we don't want to see guns in people's hands as you walk in the door. We have no idea if you're a good guy or a bad guy. That's going to cause a reaction as well. So, a lot of this is just common sense. Put yourself behind the counter, and how would you react in a situation like that?
Because even if a person's wearing a hat, you don't know what they've got under that hat, if it's bulky and big enough. And now, starting in November, it'll be getting dark earlier, too, as well. So you got to be careful for the people that work there and also the citizens that are trying to productively have a conversation or buy something. George, leave us with a final thought about the Marksman as we go into November and December.
Well, that's leading into the holidays. So if you're looking at buying yourself a nice present, we can help out. We've got layaway programs that you can we can help out with that, and you'll get it in and have it in your hands and paid off by the time Christmas rolls around. So several options as far as purchasing firearms. But if you haven't been in, come in and take a look around. Talk to the staff. Introduce yourself. Let us introduce ourselves to you, and I think you'll probably find that very beneficial.
Yeah, Google the Marksman, and Sherry does a good job of keeping up to date on Facebook as far as, like we always talk about, any up to date changes are on Facebook.
Correct. We're making some changes on the website, redoing it, but for the fast. Getting the word out quick deal. Facebook is always, the place to look, because you don't have to upload anything to the server or whatever. You just type it in on whatever screen you're using, your phone, your desktop computer, and it goes, right out immediately. So it's just easier to get the immediate word out. If something happens where we have to shut down, if we've lost power or, the phones are out, at least we get on the cell phone and notify everybody via Facebook what's going on, so they have an idea of what's happening.
Hey, George, next time you talk to Sherry, tell her it's her turn to cook for Thanksgiving this year.
All right, we'll do.
Very good. George, all the best to you and your wife and BJ, and we will talk to you in November.
All righty, you take care. Have a good holiday.
George McClain from The Marksman. Stay tuned. Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville and Virginia Beach, open daily for lunch and dinner. Mike and the staff will take good care of you. Burgers, steaks, salads, appetizers, desserts, and much more. Great atmosphere, a nice bar, spacious dining room. 1255 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach.
Mi Hogar is your restaurant for the finest Mexican cuisine in Hampton Roads. At Mi Hogar, everything is prepared fresh in a casual and comfortable atmosphere. Enjoy traditional favorites such as quesadillas, tacos, burritos, and fajitas, as well as refreshing beverages. Mi Hogar is located at 4201 Granby Street and is a tradition in Norfolk. Call 640-7705 and log on to MiHogarMexicanRestaurant.com. At Mi Hogar, there's something for everyone.
Sakura Japanese Restaurant in Chesapeake is your destination for excellent Japanese food, featuring fresh sushi and hot dishes prepared in the kitchen for lunch and dinner. Sakura is located at 1437 Sam's Drive at the Walmart Way Crossing. Oh Yummy Sushi is at the Renaissance Place at 401 North Great Neck Road in Virginia Beach. Both Sakura in Chesapeake and Oh Yummy Sushi in Virginia Beach are available with DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and Pickup. Tasty Japanese food the way you want it is at Sakura and Oh Yummy Sushi.
All right, connect with Greg Bicouvaris on Facebook, on YouTube at Greg Bick. That's GregBic. Our website is gjbtv.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Greg Bicouvaris. Connect with me on X at Greg Bick, GregBic. Of course, our show's on Audacy and wherever you get your podcast as well. Thank you. Thanks to our good friends at Lee Matney Art Consultancy and Gallery, Photographs and Art Consulting right there in beautiful Williamsburg. Iconic paintings and photographs. They've got a lot of great resources, pop, art, surrealism, and of course, abstraction right there at Linda Matney Art Gallery, the Colonial Capital on Richmond Road. Google them, follow them on social media.
A tradition of excellence for over 50 years is the Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse in Virginia Beach. Start your experience off with she crab soup, an assortment of appetizers such as the fried oyster Rockefeller crispy calamari, just to name a few. Aberdeen Barn has the finest premium steaks, prime rib, grilled tomahawk ribeye, seafood, chicken, pasta dishes, and live music in a most pleasing atmosphere. Open daily. Visit them at 5805 Northampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach. Call 464-1580 and log on to aberdeenbarn.net.
Just like my mother said, it always takes a village. Nobody can do broadcasting by themselves, whether it's a producer like Ken Carson or people I've worked on TV with at the network level. Paul Cummings, who gave me my start in Newport News in 1991, and going back to George Mason from 85 to 89, cutting my teeth on college radio. That's where you really cut your teeth. But I want to thank several people from the Newport News City Council. This is over the years, getting Silver Telly Awards, Communicator Awards, Menchville High School, multiple awards from the Peninsula Sports Club, the Newport News School System, the HEPA, Hampton Roads Sports Media Hall of Fame honorary recipient in 2024, and of course recently the Athletic Hall of Fame of the Lower Virginia Peninsula. My dad was a great influence in sports in my career, and my dad and mother both were a big part of my life and always will be. May their memory be eternal. Thank you again to everyone. It takes a village to make all this happen. I want to thank our guests for the October edition of Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app and wherever you get your podcast. I want to thank Adam Winkler, former Channel 3 sports director, as well as George McClain, and our great producer Ken Carson on site, on location, handling the audio and the uploads as well. For more, log on to gjbtv.com, click the YouTube link on the homepage, subscribe to Greg Bick on YouTube, GregBic, and also subscribe to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris on the Audacy app as well. For Ken Carson, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.